The United Kingdom is going through a major change at the moment.
At no point did my parents ever think that they would need to help me get my foot on the housing ladder.
We are living longer than we have done before.
I think my children will be worse off than my wife and I are, definitely.
I've got 2 daughters, now very much sort of left the nest, as it were. Beth is my eldest. She's just about turned 22.
I've just finished university. I studied music at Cardiff for 3 years, and now having gone travelling and come back, I've started my career in London.
We've been with St James's Place some time now, and they've been working through, as our children have gone through school, and we've gone through our own sort of challenges of making sure our pension pots are healthy, that we're tax efficient, that our mortgage is cleared down. But yes, perhaps now with a more acute interest in some of the challenges that are facing us.
Pleased to meet you. Thanks so much for coming.
Financial planning is fundamentally about understanding a client and individual's hopes, dreams, aspirations, goals, their objectives in life, and with those in mind, coming up with a series of actions to help them achieve those wherever possible.
Financial planning has changed over the years. You know, it's much more complex today than it ever used to be. In the old days, it used to be Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now it's potentially Mr. and Mrs. Smith, their children, and even their mums and dads. So it's very much more a family unit.
Historically, wealth was very much about the individual or about a couple, a partner and spouse. But what we're seeing is actually wealth needs to be, for many families, considered within that family context.
I live in Pimlico. It's a great location. It's allowed for me to cycle to work and, be centrally based for the weekends. London is an expensive place. There's no arguing about it, but I suppose it's part of the charm and part of the challenge as a young person of living there.
We believe that family wealth is increasingly important for 2 big demographic reasons: life expectancy increasing and the generational wealth gap. There has always been a wealth gap whereby younger people have less wealth than older people. That's quite a natural phenomenon. But the problem at the moment is that wealth gap is greater than it has been historically.
You have heard in the press about the baby boomers, my generation, people born 50s and early 60s. Their life has changed significantly because we probably are the first generation where we are wealthier than the next generation.
For many individuals who are now getting jobs after school and after university, they're in a low wage economy. The challenge that they face, particularly at the moment, is how to own assets. How can they get onto the property ladder? How can they increasingly start investing for their futures?
From our perspective, we would like the children to be involved in the planning process. They are starting with significantly more debt than we did after university. And so it's kind of most families wish that they can pass on wealth, the passage of wealth from generation to generation, to enable their families to have just a reasonable standard of living.
When I talk to my friends about buying a house, it is something that isn't considered a reality. It just blows our mind that it's not even just 1 year's salary, it's 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, just to put enough money down to start having a mortgage in the first place, let alone paying towards it.
If you look at the rent that Bethan pays, it's actually probably more than the mortgage payments she would pay on a similar property. But of course her income means there is little, in fact no chance of her ever getting a mortgage that will enable her to buy a place in London.
At the absolute top level, I think there's 2 primary ways that St James's Place can help. First and definitely foremost is advice. Our partners have really long-term, really deep relationships with their clients that often span decades. Secondly, we have hundreds of technical experts, individuals who monitor government legislation, regulation, demographic changes, and that results in new products, new services and services that are designed to support partners and clients in managing wealth.
Intergenerational planning has become much, much more important. Mums and dads can now help children buy houses through an intergenerational mortgage.
If we helped her, if we offset the risk that the banks are looking at, then maybe there was a way through it that didn't compromise our assets and our investments, but certainly got her out of this financial cul-de-sac out of which she can't get herself out of that. You know, if we don't intervene, nothing will change.
It is clever planning in terms of my parents allowing me to borrow against their savings for my mortgage. It means that having a property is something that is now a realisation rather than a distant dream.
In St James's Place, we have an intergenerational team. Our core focus is to look at big demographic changes that are being experienced in the United Kingdom and think through the implications to our clients of those changes. One of the major demographic trends that's affecting people's financial plans is this idea that we're all living longer. And that's placing an increased pressure, an increased set of considerations to our clients as to how to plan for their future. Historically, you might just need your pension pot to last you for 10 years until you passed away, when life expectancy was in its mid-70s. But now, as life expectancy gets pushed out further and further and further, that same pension pot might not need to last 20 years, 30-something years in some cases.
Traditionally, when you retired, you have very few choices. You probably got your final salary pension scheme from work. You received 100% of it until the employee died, and then probably 50% went to the spouse, and then when the spouse died, that ceased altogether. Today, that's changed. People are retiring maybe at 55. They then maybe use some of their pension and some of their investments to give them their income they want. Most importantly, though, a lot of that income in retirement, a lot of the capital that's used to generate that income can now be passed from one generation to another.
Another implication of our collective longevity is the potential for us to have to pay for care in the future. We are leading healthier and happier lives for longer than we ever expected to. And that is a significant planning challenge for many of us.
I feel stretched because not only is there now a serious consideration around, if we do live into our 90s, what social care requirements might we need, my husband and I need, and how do we make sure that that's not a burden transferred onto our children. Off the back of that, we are blessed to have both sets of parents still around. Unfortunately, that then demands a question of us of what if their social care becomes our burden, and are we prepared and able to step in?
Intergenerational wealth management is a very, very positive topic. We design products such that multiple generations can be a little bit more close. It's about supporting wealth transfer and financial planning while everybody's alive and well.
Our clients worked hard all their lives. They now want to actually spend some time with their children and their grandchildren, their mums and dads maybe, and they don't want the responsibility of worrying about changes in legislation, changes in tax rates. That they want their partner to do, and for me that's what a good St James's partner does for their client.
My parents never had financial advice, so again it's St James's Place that's gently putting its arms around my parents through us to sort of say this is holistically the things we should be doing for you.
If you think this through from a client's perspective, they get to transfer wealth, they get to give money to their relatives, be it their own elderly parents or their children and grandchildren, and they get to witness the benefits, the joy that that wealth brings.
You're looking at properties online and thinking it's something that I can consider. And now when I walk past it, sort of, oh, is that the right price? Is that in my price range? Is that something I can go and look at the weekend? It's really exciting.